Hi, and welcome to our end of 24 and future gazing into 2025 review. I'm here with John Court, who is the Global Director of IT at HFW. Hi, John.
Hi, Caroline.
Nice to have you here. So John, many of you will know, he's been at HFW for 6 years, and he's previously held senior roles at Clyde & Co. and before that, Herbert Smith Freehills. We talked not that long ago about some of the excitement in the market, but I've got you here today to do a sort of end of year reflection on some of the milestones of 2024 and then to get your Mystic Meg hat on for the year ahead. Tell me, it's been a mad year, as we all know. Tell me for you, what's been some of the developments or milestones for the firm or for the industry for 2024 that you'd like to flag?
I think this year has been obviously a very exciting year. It's been a busy year for everybody. I think we have been obviously slightly preoccupied with artificial intelligence. That's been obviously the headline story of the year, I would say, for most organizations and most firms. So for us, there has been some focus on that, but also it's been as much about really following the idea and the concept really of being a thoughtful follower and really assessing where there's value, where there's capability in the technology, what's the right use case for the technology, crucially, which I don't think anyone's really nailed down for legal as a whole yet. So really, it's been much about readiness and preparation for us, I think, in terms of artificial intelligence at least, but also really just continuing on our journey and our strategy, which is much like, again, other firms, which is around cloud first, moving to the cloud, securing our technology, providing service to obviously our lawyers and support staff, and making sure that they're able to support the firm's clients. So really, it's just been a year of considerable achievement for our team, and we have made some real steps forward in terms of that journey into the cloud and some of our key technologies. But also, it's about again looking to the future and thinking about how do we need to be ready with our infrastructure, with our data, and with our applications, and obviously leading into artificial intelligence at the right time.
Yeah, it's hard to there's just too much to do, isn't there, all the time in terms, and it's great that you flagged those other projects. I think it's really important that we remember, that there's a lot of other really good work being done. And if you want to share any of those other projects, please do by all means, because it's great to hear about those. Do you is there anything that particularly you want to flag in terms of your journey? Because I know from speaking to you that you've been doing a lot of work. And B, tell me how perhaps a little bit more about then how you're getting the firm ready for the year ahead.
Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of work around rationalizing our supply chains, making sure we've got key strategic suppliers in place, whether that's on our wide area network with suppliers such as BT, their global network, and also suppliers such as Cato, where we've deployed their SASE solution, which is quite forward facing and it's gone particularly well. We're also looking at where we've got our data centers at the moment around the world. So our co-location data centers, which as per our cloud first strategy, we're exiting those data centers. So there's been some real key achievements and milestones in the year in that respect as well. So we've exited one of those data centers already, and we have plans for 2025 to exit further too. So that's very exciting, but it does involve a lot of work behind the scenes, and obviously being incredibly mindful of what is a busy practice and making sure that we do so in a way that we take our fee earners and our staff partners and staff along with us. So we're making sure that where we are making changes and they're having to adopt a new technology or new applications, or their data might be moving from one location to another, we're making sure that we handhold, we communicate, we engage, we consult, and we support fundamentally. So we're really making sure that we take everyone with us, and there's a period of adaptation, and everyone sort of comes out the other side and without anything on fire, or there's no we've got to where we got to. It might not be perfect every single time. There's always going to be challenges along the way, as we all know, but really it's just about that, making sure that we prepare and we really fully engage and take people along with us. So it doesn't feel like IT is doing to the business. It feels like we're going along and everyone kind of understands not just what we're doing, but also why we're doing it, which is really important.
That's great. That's really important. I think what's a real sea change with the new technologies coming out is the level of enthusiasm. You know, we're no longer having to sort of try and tell people to use technology. They're sort of coming to you, but that presents its own challenges. Bearing in mind, and you and I have discussed this before, about how certain technologies which are essential for everyday to day work, but maybe not quite as exciting, are not used to their full extent. You know, so it's around drafting. How do you have you I mean, I suppose, have you got a sort of, defined policy in place now in terms of Gen AI and the year ahead and new tech? And B, how do you cope with the FOMO perhaps of people coming to you, and the ration you do a lot around rationalizing, as you've just discussed. How do you manage that with people in terms of making sure that you keep your level head on?
Yeah, it is it's a good question, and it's a hard one to answer. We're obviously making sure, and it is incredibly important. I've seen a lot about this recently, but we were fairly quick to identify the need for an artificial intelligence policy, which covers off Gen AI and other matters as well. And that's not least to which, because particularly we've got a crystal ball, we're amazing in any way, which obviously we are, but it is the case of our clients needing it and the regulators needing it, and considering things more broadly like the EU AI Act as well, starting to look at those things and understanding what's likely to be required. And generally, you have to jump to something like a policy in the first instance. So it's all well and good having a policy, but obviously then you need to make sure you communicate it. And again, people understand what we're asking them to do, crucially also what we're asking them not to do, and also then what that means for them and why they need to make sure they think about those things. So we have done quite a lot of work, and that's working hand in hand and collaborating with the risk and compliance team at HFW. So that's been a really important exercise for us. And then generally, yes, there has been lots of questions around, why haven't we got the latest tools? I've seen the latest news headlines from various law firms about their amazing Gen AI. I'm not overly dismissive of that, but again, at the same time, it's like then using that as an opportunity to turn the question around and say, okay, well, what is it that actually you're trying to achieve? What would you like to be more efficient at doing? What is it that you're what's the outcome you're looking for? And then can we have that as a conversation to then lead into us looking at the options to do that, rather than saying, okay, here's the latest greatest tool, whatever that might be, and can I have £10 of that, please? And I'm just like, okay, well, as I say, I've used AI, I suppose, as an excuse to turn that around, but it's also a really great opportunity to start talking about data and process and other things, which I sometimes think is more important in that whole journey to AI, and then layering AI on top of it. So, and there's lots of work to be done there. It's not like we've got the magic sauce, we've worked it all out, but as I say, where we've managed that kind of FOMO and not panic, but those questions, is a great in, because I mean, in IT sometimes you do get overlooked. It's quite hard to get that engagement. So this is a great opportunity to actually, I welcome it. It's a good problem to have lawyers coming to you and other staff going, okay, well, what can I do with this technology?
It is welcome. Do you I don't know how much you want to say about specific projects that you're working on, and feel free to not, but is there anything in particular, in the Gen AI space, that you would like to highlight in terms of early work that you're doing, or and also perhaps in terms of the strategy? So some people are saying, well, look, we're still very early days, but we're looking at our existing vendors, or we're looking at Microsoft, or for example Copilot, or we're looking at stuff that we regard as being safer to sort of develop these early use cases.
I think the view we're taking is, and we are working with Microsoft, as most organizations are. We're a Microsoft customer. We are looking at the Copilot suite of applications. We are doing a lot of work with Microsoft at the moment to deploy Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is perhaps unsurprisingly is being led by an adoption exercise. So we're working with a partner on that as well to make sure we offer a sort of multi-channel approach to the training and the communication. So again, people kind of understand not just how you use it, but where you'd use it and why. So that's going well at the moment, and we're taking a fairly considered approach, but we are rolling that out globally at the moment. So that's probably in the more what I would consider to be kind of general productivity area. So that's not a kind of specific use case generated exercise, but what that's going to enable us to do is sort of upskill. And again, to my earlier point about people saying, well, okay, well, I really want to use AI. Hopefully that's going to help us elicit some use cases, which is outside of the capability of the M365 Copilot product. And then we can again start looking at potential use cases that either we can buy off the shelf, which is our preference generally, or that's something we can build in-house.
Yeah.
So that's our approach really. It's quite, as I say, I would describe us as a thoughtful follower.
Yeah,
we can make sure that we sort of take in all the potential options and considerations before we go forward. But we are recognising the fact, going back to that FOMO point, that we do need to keep moving forward. So we are looking forward, but at the same time, we're not, going in full bore on any kind of particular solution until we're really quite confident that there is the use case there, and there's crucially the business case.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, and because you don't want to end up with 15 different AI tools, and also that would be super expensive. But you do want people to become familiar with the tools and start to incorporate it in their daily lives, don't you? And sort of, I think it's as much a people exercise sometimes as, and I'm trying to do it in my own life as well. I've said on other calls that trying to practice what I preach, because it's very easy to start to fall behind, isn't it? You need to start working out what these tools are capable of and how, get a feel. It's almost like it really is a cultural thing as much as a tech thing.
It's a cultural thing, absolutely. And that's why looking forward, our focus is very much around, obviously it's like a technical training exercise, but it's as much about a behavioural training exercise and a kind of almost a psychological one, not to overblow it, but it's kind of, okay, because there's lots of different ways you're going to look at your work and how you do your work and how you share your work and how much you, I guess, delegate to an AI agent in your work. So that's going to take a slightly different viewpoint and a slightly different sort of psychology sometimes, in terms of, you might have individuals who are quite controlling, quite detail oriented. They need to sort of adjust to it and adapt. So it's going to be much about that as it is anything else. So yeah, the training is not just going to be click, click, next, as I like to call it. So this is how you use Copilot. It's going to be much more about, okay, well, now think about the art of the possible and what that means for your role. And let's think about working with our learning and development team, perhaps the other skills that you need to bring to the table to work in this new world.
Yeah, brilliant. So unless you've got anything else about 24, I mean, it's hard within short conversations because there's just too much. But so perhaps, could you get your 25 future gazing hat on? What do you see coming down the track?
For us, there's going to be continuing more of the same. So we've still got a good year or two of preparation and readiness to do. So more of that cloud first, a lot around data. We're going to be doing a lot around data strategy, data cleansing, and really, again, thinking with the outcome in mind, thinking about how we need to prepare our data for improvements in process, improvements in reporting, improvements in insight, improvements in knowledge, and then obviously let's layer some AI over the top of that as well. So we're still going to be working some things out next year, but it's going to be very much in that space in terms of cloud and data. So more of the same, but just building on that. A bunch more kind of training and engagement with the business as well, just to understand what that's going to mean, what it's going to look like. And I think, it's just really making sure the platform is ready for it all. It's all about readiness, which sounds like perhaps a strange thing when you're looking forward, but it's all going to be about sort of upskilling, but it's also going to be making sure that the technology platforms are agile and secure and all the good things that they need to be, so that the business can continue to operate as it's operating now, continue to be successful, continue to grow, continue to achieve its strategy, whilst we're sort of navigating this time of intense kind of activity in the technology space. It's going to be an interesting time for sure.
Yeah, I think that sounds super sensible. I think that for some firms where perhaps they've got really excited and jumped into proof of concepts and did all kinds of stuff, raced ahead, I think you then get to a point where the data's just not up to it, or the blocks are just not in place. And I think this is going to be, I think that's absolutely key, isn't it? Make sure that you're completely ready.
Absolutely. So we still trial it, but really those trials are going to be as much about kind of testing our readiness for these things. Is the data ready for it? So hopefully we'd have elicited those wonderful use cases, supported by a strong business case, and then now's the time we can invest, but let's do so in a sensible way, and then make sure we sort of test and prototype and really sort of feel our way through it. It's almost, it's hopefully kind of like controlled, sensible innovation.
Okay. Well, look, as I've said in other looking back and forward conversations, I really hope that you'll come back in a year's time and we can have another conversation as to how how this sort of stacks up against how 2025 went. But John, it's really great chatting to you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Caroline.